You've been working hard, but nothing seems to change. And deep down, you already know why. Because you don't have a system, just a cycle of starting over. In this video, you'll finally understand why desire, motivation, and even hard work aren't enough. And how the people who win with money do it differently. Not by trying harder, but by following a structure that never depends on how they feel. At the end, I'll share the single shift you can make today to stop repeating failure and start building a life you can sustain. Let's be honest. You've had days when you felt unstoppable. You made plans. You promised yourself, this time it's different. But 2 weeks later, it wasn't. You were back in the same place. Confused. Frustrated. Broke again. And it's not because you didn't care enough. It's because your system wasn't strong enough to survive your bad days. And that's where most people fail. They think desire creates change. They believe that if they want it badly enough, somehow it'll work. But it doesn't. Because money doesn't follow emotions. It follows patterns. It follows systems. And if your system is random, your results will be too. Most people live in a cycle. Motivation, effort, burnout, guilt, restart. They confuse inspiration with strategy. And every time they crash, they assume they need more motivation. But what they really need is less guessing, less improvisation, and more repetition of the right actions, even when they feel nothing. Let me give it to you straight. If your money habits change every week, you won't get rich. If your financial planning depends on how inspired you feel, you'll never build stability. If your actions aren't part of a repeatable structure, your results will always collapse under stress. It's not a mindset problem. It's a design problem. Because while you're trying to stay motivated, the people who are quietly winning, they've automated their habits. They've simplified their decisions. They know exactly what to do on a Monday morning, on a tough week, or when nothing feels exciting. Their secret isn't intensity. It's consistency by design. It doesn't look exciting. It doesn't feel magical. But it works. And it's working while you're still trying to figure out what to try next. So here's the truth. If you want different results, stop asking yourself what you feel like doing. Start asking, what system am I willing to commit to, even on my worst days? Because when money becomes the result of structure, not willpower, everything changes. And that's where we begin. In the next step, I'll walk you through the first core principle behind every system that builds long-term wealth, and why most people overlook it completely. Let's get into it. There's a mistake most people make when trying to improve their financial life. They build a system that only works on their best day. They set up a budget that demands total control. They start routines that require peak energy and flawless discipline. They overcomplicate everything, and then wonder why it collapses the moment life gets messy. Here's the truth. A good system isn't built for your best day. It's built for your worst. Because anyone can save money when they feel inspired. Anyone can follow a plan when everything's going right. But when you're tired, when you're behind on work, when life hits you with distractions, pressure, and stress, that's when your system shows its real value. If it breaks the moment you're not 100%, it's not a system. It's a fragile wish. Let me give you an example. Person A builds a financial routine that includes journaling, checking 5 budget apps, reviewing daily investments, listening to 3 podcasts, and updating 2 spreadsheets. It works beautifully for 3 days. Then stress hits. They skip one part, then another. By the end of the week, they've given up the entire routine because it was never realistic to begin with. Now person B, they created a simple system. 1 account for bills, 1 account for saving, 1 rule, transfer 10% of income every Monday, no questions asked. 1 check-in, 5 minutes every Friday with a single dashboard. That's it. It's not sexy. It's not impressive on Instagram, but it survives hard weeks. And because of that, it compounds over time. The best system is the one you can do consistently when life is chaotic. This applies to everything: saving, investing, income growth. If your entire strategy falls apart, just because your day went wrong. You never had a strategy. You had a fragile fantasy. So here's your shift. Stop designing for your ideal self. Start designing for your real self. Create habits that match your actual energy, not your fantasy version on a perfect Monday. If 30 minutes of budgeting sounds perfect, but 5 minutes is what you'll actually do daily, go with the 5. If you want to track every expense, but always drop it after 3 days, track just the category that causes overspending. Start small, but stay solid. This is what wealthy people do differently. They don't rely on emotional spikes. They don't create systems that demand perfection. They create structures that are frictionless to repeat, because repetition is the secret. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things over and over until they compound. So ask yourself, can I follow this rule on a stressful day? Will this process survive when I feel lazy, sad, or overwhelmed? Does this structure collapse when motivation is gone? If the answer is no, simplify it. If it breaks under pressure, rebuild it. Your financial life should run on minimum required discipline, not maximum ideal behavior. That's the only way to make it last. Because the people who win with money long-term, they don't push harder. They remove friction. They make the right decision, the easy one to repeat. And once your system survives your worst day, it will carry you forward even when nothing else is working. In the next step, we'll talk about the second principle that wealthy people master: turning decisions into defaults. Because if you still have to choose what to do every day, you're wasting energy that should be building your future. Let's continue. You're not tired because you're undisciplined. You're tired because your mind is making hundreds of small, invisible decisions every day, and none of them are building your future. Most people don't understand how expensive indecision is. It doesn't just drain time. It steals mental clarity. It delays action. And slowly, it breaks down your identity. Should I save today or spend? Should I start that budget now or wait for next month? Should I look at my finances or just hope they improve? All of these are decisions you shouldn't be making daily. Not because they don't matter, but because they matter too much to be left to chance. This is where the wealthy operate differently. They make those decisions once, with clarity, and then never again. They don't wake up wondering what to do. Their actions aren't emotional. They're scheduled, predefined, installed into their lives like code in a program. It's not about being robotic. It's about being strategic. They know that every time you pause to decide whether or not you'll take action, you give resistance a window to sneak in. And if you leave the door open long enough, it will always walk through. Let's be real. Your financial transformation doesn't fail because you're weak. It fails because you're unprotected. And the most powerful protection isn't motivation, it's defaults. A default is a predecided behavior, a system that doesn't ask how you feel. It only asks, what's next in the sequence? Let me show you what this looks like. Imagine two people starting from the same place. Same income, same goals, same resources. The first person spends time every day thinking, what should I do with this extra money? Should I buy this or save it? Should I invest now or wait for the market? They think more than they act. And by the time they reach a decision, the emotional fatigue has already worn them out. They lose momentum, not because they lack knowledge, but because their system requires too many micro-decisions to function. Now look at the second person. They made decisions in advance. They already set a rule. Every Monday, 15% of income moves to a separate account, no matter what. Every Saturday morning, 10 minutes are blocked for money review, non-negotiable. Impulse purchases follow the 48-hour pause rule, always. They don't decide daily. They act daily, without discussion. That's the difference. One is reactive, the other is structured. And guess who's moving faster? The second person isn't better. They're not more driven. They just eliminated friction. Because friction is what kills follow-through. And friction lives in decision overload. If your system requires daily choices, you will eventually make the wrong one. Not because you're undisciplined, but because no one wins every single internal debate. The goal is not to remove freedom. The goal is to free your future from emotional dependency. Think of it this way. You brush your teeth without thinking. You lock your door without hesitation. You don't ask yourself every day, should I do it? That's the power of default. Now apply that to your money. What if every time you got paid, a set percentage was auto-routed before you touched it? Every weekend you reviewed your numbers without exception, just like brushing your teeth? You had fixed rules for high-risk spending moments and actually followed them? It sounds boring. It sounds mechanical, but it works. And it keeps working long after motivation disappears. Let me ask you this. How many financial goals have you started but never completed? How many systems did you build that depended on feeling strong? How many times have you abandoned a process, not because it didn't work, but because it wasn't protected by structure? You need fewer heroic efforts. You need fewer bursts of energy. You need fewer, this time it's different moments. What you need is a path that doesn't require you to feel anything special to walk it. Because success is not about the days you feel powerful. It's about what happens when you don't. And the truth is, every decision you make in advance becomes a deposit in your future discipline. Every default you install becomes a silent assistant to your future self. So here's how you start. Step 1. Identify the financial decisions that cause you the most stress, friction, or hesitation. It might be where your money goes the moment it arrives, when and how you allow yourself to spend impulsively, whether or not you track what you earn and spend. Step 2. For each of those areas, write a rule. One clear line. No room for debate. Examples. Every Monday, transfer X% to this account. No questions asked. Every purchase above $100 waits 48 hours. Every Saturday at 10 a.m., I open my dashboard. No skipping. Step 3. Follow it even when it feels stupid. Even when it feels small. Because structure is never about speed. It's about sustainability. The faster you eliminate unnecessary decisions, the faster you can use your energy to build something real. Remember this. Every day you don't default, you defer. And if you keep deferring, you'll keep delaying the life you say you want. The future is not built by force. It's built by rhythm. And rhythm starts when you stop asking questions and start trusting the process you installed. You say you want to grow. You say you want to build. But what are you actually measuring? Because here's the truth. What you don't track, you don't respect. And what you don't respect disappears. If you want to change your financial reality, you need to start with one painful question. What are you actually paying attention to? Most people say, I'm being more disciplined. I'm spending less. I think I'm saving more lately. But thinking is not measuring. Guessing is not growing. And vague progress is the perfect hiding place for silent failure. That's why most people stay stuck. They don't track their habits, only their hopes. They rely on a feeling. They assume things are improving because nothing feels broken. And by the time they realize they've slipped, it's too late. Their momentum is gone. Their results are flat. And their confidence is shaken. If you want to take control, you need to know exactly where you stand. Not emotionally, factually. Wealth doesn't respond to emotion. It responds to structure. And structure starts with tracking the truth. Let me show you how this works. Imagine a builder constructing a house. Would he guess how many bricks he's laid each day? Would he just feel whether the foundation is strong enough? Of course not. He has blueprints. He has measurements. He checks, double checks, and keeps records because the stakes are high. So why do you treat your financial foundation with less respect? You say you want to build a new life, but you don't even know what's going in or out of your account. You don't know where your money leaks. You don't know what you're overspending on. You don't know how many days you've kept your system running without breaking it. And that lack of awareness is costing you. Because without tracking, there's no pattern. Without pattern, there's no progress. And without progress, there's no belief. And when belief dies, discipline follows. So let me ask you this. Do you track your income? Do you track your expenses by category? Do you know how much of your money builds your future and how much destroys it? Can you name your last 5 impulse purchases? Do you know how many days you've honored your financial rules without fail? If the answer is no, it's not because you're incapable. It's because no one taught you the power of data when it comes to behavior. Tracking isn't about punishment. It's about awareness. Because what you observe, you influence. And what you measure, you improve. You don't need to track everything. Start with 3 things. Income in, money out, money kept. And be specific. Break expenses into types: essentials, optional, impulse. Know how much goes to savings and when. Know how much of your spending is aligned with your values and how much is just noise. This isn't for a spreadsheet. It's for your integrity. Because when you know your numbers, you stop telling yourself stories. You stop justifying. You stop guessing. You either see improvement or you don't. And both are good. Because clarity is always better than illusion. Let me give you a real example. 2 people earn the same $3,000 per month. One says, "I'm doing okay. I think I saved around $200 this month." The other says, "I spent $1,736.21. Here's the breakdown. I saved 12%, overspent on food by $89, but adjusted by canceling a subscription. Next month, I'll cap that category at $220. Guess who's building wealth and who's guessing again next month? The second person isn't smarter. They're just willing to see the full picture. They've trained their brain to value numbers, not narratives. They've built awareness into their system. That's what you need now. Not another goal, not another quote, but a simple rule. If I'm not measuring it, I'm not serious about it. Because real transformation doesn't live in intention. It lives in observation. Start tracking now. Make it visible. Even if the truth is uncomfortable. Even if the numbers hurt. Because the goal isn't to feel good. The goal is to be in control. And control doesn't come from guessing. It comes from data, from repetition, from clarity. So from this moment forward, your system must include this. A way to track what you care about. Daily, weekly, monthly, without fail. Because what you want to grow won't survive being ignored. And what you start measuring now could be the very thing that saves your momentum 6 months from today. Your emotions are not the enemy. But if you don't know how to manage them, they will dismantle everything you're building. You can have the perfect financial system, clear goals, solid tracking, a simple plan. But the moment your emotions take the wheel, everything becomes negotiable. Suddenly, that non-negotiable savings rule, it's postponed. That weekly review, skipped. That spending cap, ignored, just this once. And in that moment, you're no longer following your system. You're following your feelings. And feelings don't build wealth. They build excuses. Let's get something straight. Emotion is a normal part of being human. But systems are designed to protect you from your own fluctuations. Because even the most disciplined person will have weak days. What separates the ones who stay on track isn't that they feel less. It's that they're prepared for the feelings. Think about it. You've had days where you felt like giving up. Days where your brain told you, just this once, break the rule. Buy it. You've worked hard. Skip the routine. You deserve rest. And that voice didn't sound destructive. It sounded reasonable, comforting, even protective. But here's the truth. That voice isn't trying to build your future. It's trying to protect your comfort. And wealth is not built in comfort. It's built in alignment. And alignment means doing what you decided, especially when your emotions don't agree. So how do you protect your system from yourself? You create buffers. You create conditions. You install fail-safes, so the plan survives even when your energy drops. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Instead of saying, "I'll transfer money when I feel ready," you automate it. It happens before your brain has a chance to negotiate. Instead of relying on willpower to resist impulse buying, you create friction. Remove saved payment methods from shopping apps. Use a 48-hour rule before buying anything non-essential. Put that money in a hold account instead. Let logic return before you act. Instead of tracking finances when you remember, you set a fixed time on your calendar. Weekly. No discussion. No emotion. It happens like brushing your teeth. It's just part of the system. You don't wait for your emotions to align. You pre-commit. Let's take it deeper. You also need to anticipate emotional sabotage. Know your patterns. When do you overspend? When do you skip structure? What mood makes you say forget it? Now build a rule for each. Example. When I feel like giving up on my system, I text a friend with my numbers instead of hiding them. When I get triggered to spend, I pause and journal for 10 minutes before acting. If I miss one day, I'm not allowed to miss the next. Ever. You don't fight emotion with emotion. You fight it with design. Design wins because it removes negotiation. It makes the decision once, not daily. And that's how discipline becomes sustainable. The wealthiest people aren't perfect. They just know this. Your emotional weather can't rewrite the plan. The system exists to protect you from the storm, not to be redesigned every time the wind shifts. And here's the paradox. The more emotion-proof your system is, the more peace you feel, not because you feel nothing, but because you stop arguing with yourself. You stop relapsing into guilt. You stop apologizing to your own standards. You stop hoping for a better day. You just follow the path, even when your heart says no. That's maturity. That's leadership. And that's how you protect the system that's protecting your future. So here's your challenge. This week, don't try to be stronger. Try to be smarter. Look at your current plan and ask, what part of this breaks when I'm tired? What part of this folds under stress? What part of this depends on me feeling motivated? And fix it. Reinforce the weak points. Turn your system into something that doesn't bend every time you do. Because one day, you will feel like quitting. But if your system is strong enough, you won't need to be. Let's get real. You don't struggle with discipline because you're lazy. You struggle because your actions are disconnected from who you believe you are. You've been trying to follow financial routines, but deep down, you still think of yourself as bad with money. You've tried saving, budgeting, being consistent, but it always feels like you're pretending, like you're forcing a version of you that doesn't really exist yet. And here's the truth. You can't sustain habits that conflict with your identity. Not for long. Not with peace. Not with power. Because identity always wins. Every time. If you believe you're inconsistent, you'll find a way to break the pattern just to stay aligned with that identity. If you believe you're the kind of person who always struggles financially, you'll sabotage progress, not because you want to fail, but because succeeding would feel unfamiliar. That's why systems fail when identity isn't involved. But when every financial decision becomes an act of alignment, a reflection of who you've decided to be, everything changes. You're no longer just saving money. You're living like someone who protects their future. You're not just tracking expenses. You're honoring the structure of someone who leads their life. You're not just saying no to a purchase. You're saying yes to the version of you that doesn't compromise. And that is where power lives. When your system becomes a mirror of who you are, you stop needing motivation. You stop chasing hype. You stop negotiating with chaos. You simply act, because not acting would be betrayal. So here's the question. Who are you building all this for? Not what, who. You say you want financial freedom. But what does that version of you look like? How do they walk? How do they respond to problems? How do they talk to themselves when they're tired? Start becoming that now. Before the money shows up, before the results, before the applause. Because systems don't just protect your behavior. They protect your identity and progress. Let me say that again. Your system isn't just a tool, it's a declaration. A statement you make every day. This is who I am now, and I don't betray myself anymore. Think of the wealthiest people you admire, not the flashy ones, but the consistent ones. They don't just act rich. They live with the discipline of someone who knows who they are. They don't keep checking if it's working. They already decided, this is who I am. and I'll walk like it until the results catch up. That's how you become powerful, not when the money arrives, but when the identity is no longer negotiable. Let me give you something practical. When you build or refine your system this week, don't just ask, does this habit help me grow financially? Also ask, does this habit reflect who I've decided to be? Because when identity and behavior align, you don't need discipline. You need integrity. And integrity is a stronger fuel. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it? It says, this is who I am. This is what I do. Every rule in your system, every routine, every repetition should answer one question. Does this honor the future I've already chosen? If the answer is yes, then repeat it until it becomes part of your name. And if the answer is no, remove it, even if it looks good, even if it's trending. Because if it doesn't reinforce your identity, it's just noise wearing a mask of productivity. Let today be the day you stop treating your system like a chore and start treating it like a code of honor. Not to impress anyone, not to reach a number, but to respect the version of you that's been waiting to be taken seriously. Because once you become that version, your money will follow, your habits will hold, and the old version of you will finally fade. Money doesn't follow how inspired you are. It doesn't follow how much you want it. It doesn't even follow how hard you try. It follows structure. It follows patterns. It follows your ability to do what matters, especially when you don't feel like it. That's the part no one likes to hear. Because it's not glamorous. It's not viral. It's not emotional. But it's real. The truth is, most people aren't failing because they lack intelligence or ambition. They're failing because they're trying to build a future with no structure to hold it up. They want to grow financially, but they live in loops. They crave consistency, but they keep redesigning their plan every week. They talk about discipline, but they keep negotiating with emotion. And you've probably lived that too. That exhausting cycle of this time I'll change. Again, and again, and again. But that version of you, the one that keeps restarting, doesn't need more chances. It needs to be replaced. And not with a more motivated version, but with a more aligned one. Because now you see what actually works. Systems that survive bad days. Decisions made in advance. Tracking that brings clarity. Rules that stay, even when emotions don't. And above all, routines that reflect your identity, not just your goals. That's what builds wealth. That's what builds freedom. That's what separates the few who break through from the many who keep circling the same problem. And here's the most important part. This isn't just about money. This is about self-respect. About proving to yourself that you can follow through. That you can build something strong and actually live inside it. That you can stop needing to restart because now you've built a life that doesn't need escape routes. Let that sink in. You've spent years trying to escape the life you created. Now it's time to build one that doesn't require escape. And how do you do that? With a system that reflects who you've decided to be. That's the shift most people never make. They stay stuck because they keep trying to improve their behavior without ever upgrading their structure. But you've gone deeper. You've seen behind the curtain. You've seen what actually moves the needle. So the question is no longer, what should I do? It's, what version of me am I reinforcing every single day? Because at the end of the day, your system isn't just about progress. It's about identity. Every rule you install, every repetition you honor, every decision you automate, it's all saying something louder than any words ever could. This is who I am now, and I don't break promises to myself anymore. When you start living from that place, money becomes a side effect. Clarity becomes natural. Consistency becomes personal. You stop fighting with yourself. You stop falling for shortcuts. And you finally stop looking for a new plan every time life gets uncomfortable. You just follow what you built. You show up, no matter what. And that's enough. That's power. Because power isn't loud. It isn't forceful. Power is when your life moves forward. Even when your emotions say no. Power is when your system carries you. Especially on the days you don't want to carry yourself. And now that you know that, you can never go back. You can't unsee what consistency looks like. You can't unfeel what self-respect feels like. You can't unlearn what alignment truly demands. So here's your next move. Don't look for more information. You already have what you need. Go back to the core. One system, one identity, one standard that you no longer break. Reinforce it until it feels like your skin. Repeat it until it feels like your name. Because the life you're trying to build, it's already on the other side of repetition. And the more you commit to that rhythm, the quieter the doubts will become. Because nothing silences doubt like progress. Nothing heals inconsistency like a system you finally respect. And nothing proves transformation like action that survives emotion. So build it now. Protect it. And don't ever let your past self decide what happens next. The future doesn't belong to the most excited. It belongs to the most consistent. To the ones who stop guessing. To the ones who install structure. To the ones who live like their future depends on what they repeat today. Because it does. If this resonated with you deeply, subscribe now. Not just to hear more, but to remember who you've decided to become. Because here, we don't just chase success. We build it. One habit, one system, one decision at a time. And if you're ready to keep going, the next video is waiting. It's not just a continuation. It's a contract with the part of you that's done living out of alignment. Watch it, because this time, you're not starting over. You're moving forward.